Hello, everyone. I am Shantae Keller with KC SourceLink and Missouri SourceLink. Thank you for sticking with us on day one of Global Entrepreneurship Week KC. GEWKC really shines the light on the great things that are happening all year long in your community. There are thousands of classes, educational sessions, and networking events that happen throughout the year. Sorry, lost my place. These are made available to you on the KC SourceLink calendar. Check it out after this session. Also, make sure you're signing up for community events at gewkc.org. On top of the great content you'll see there, there's also a trivia night and a bingo night. So now I'd love to introduce you to Hannah Taylor, and she's going to discuss virtual networking for weirdos and other social pariahs. Have fun.
Thanks, Shantae. Yeah, if you're watching this, you've already self-identified as a weirdo or social pariah, so I'm gonna assume that you're not offended by those statements. Or maybe you were just intrigued by the title. I don't know, but here you are, hopefully. I don't know. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you. Shout out to Shantae, who is probably the coolest person in Kansas City. If you don't know Shantae, get to know Shantae. She has been busting her butt the last, forever putting this together, and all those people at KC SourceLink. Huge props to you guys. You guys are the best. So let's get this started. Let's see. All right, so virtual networking for weirdos and other social pariahs. If you are like me, sometimes you have to be an extrovert when you're secretly an introvert, and that's okay. We still have to network. But networking looks a lot different now that we're all working from home or we are socially distancing ourselves from other people. So, I'm going to talk about just some tips for people like me who are not super comfortable 100% of the time around other people. So, without further ado, yeah, we are in the midst of a pandemic. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but GEW is actually happening virtually this year. It's not in person. So, if that's news to you, lay off, lay off the juice. I don't know. So, the pandemic has us all looking like this, right? We're all in front of our laptops. We've got our headphones in. We're pretty much attached to our phones constantly now. And this is how we're engaging with people. This is how we're networking. This is how we are meeting with our coworkers. This is kind of what we've been doing the last 8 months. Unfortunately, sometimes when we start working like this, we learn a little bit more about ourselves. And that is that we may be a weirdo or an outcast or a pariah or what you might call yourself a free spirit. Listen, I know you guys that are free spirits. Y'all are weirdos too. I get it. I'm one. I can say it. Um, and that sometimes can come through in these Zoom calls and Skypes and FaceTimes, just in a different way. If we were to network in person, we can spot a weirdo when we see one. And the same goes for virtual networking. Now, this is not a class on how to not be a weirdo. I want you to embrace all the good weirdness that makes you you, because that's why people want to get to know you. But we are going to go through 10 tips to kind of elevate your virtual networking. Real quick, I wanted to show you this very intense graphic. This is a diagram of Zoom meeting attention span. So you can see that our big sectors are relief at seeing other humans and OMG, why didn't I take a shower? So if you fall into one of these categories, I'm right there with you. You can see that some of the other larger categories are: has my neck always looked like that? Checking out your coworker's house, removal of kids from your bedroom, and maybe if I move the camera just a little higher up. So all jokes aside, Zooming has been huge the last 8 months. And we know that because we all have, we've never heard of Zoom, right, until the pandemic started. So this is where we're at. We have to embrace it. We have to move forward from it. And we have to, laugh at ourselves sometimes. So, um, tip number one is 15 minutes before you start networking or you join that conference call. Um, we've got our little baby Yoda here saying, when you're in a Zoom meeting and act like you're drinking coffee, but it's really wine. Um, I'm not going to tell you whether or not you can or cannot do that. Don't drink on the job. I don't know. Do you? But that being said, make sure to grab a drink. Definitely water if you're going to be there for a while. Um, Sometimes a nervous person or an introvert might need a second just to like gather their thoughts, and having something to grab and to sip, so whether that be coffee or some water or some seasonal apple cider, there's absolutely no alcohol in that. Take a moment to just gather your thoughts. It's kind of like is it a Twix commercial or a Snickers commercial where they're like, do you need a minute? Like, eat a Twix. Another thing we can do, and this seems silly, and I'm sure we've heard it before, is to strike a pose, right? We want to make sure that before we get on that call, we're feeling confident in ourselves and who we are. And striking that superhero pose, with your hands on your hips, like you're Superwoman or Superman, it really makes a huge difference. It gives you this like sense of confidence that you can like totally own what you're about to do. And there's other ways to get out your jitters, whether you just kind of need to shake it out or like take a walk down the hallway. There's a lot of things that you can do to just get those jitters out the 15 minutes before. Of course, I don't need to tell you, like use the restroom before you jump on a call. But these are things that people forget, and all of a sudden they're in the middle of the call and they're like, oh, I've got to get out of here, right? And then another really handy thing is just keeping pen and paper ready. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But we want to make sure that we're focused on the networking and meeting new people. And sometimes it's difficult to have those one-on-one conversations if you're in like a larger Zoom call. If you're in a Zoom call with like 20, 30 other people, it's really really difficult sometimes to like reach out to one specific person. So if you can just down their contact information, you can reach out to them later. But always have a pen and paper handy. Here's your goal number two. You have to have a goal in the first place, right? You need to ask yourself, why am I attending this networking event? Why am I on this call at all? And if you can't answer that, you probably don't need to be on the call, unless the answer is I am forced to be on this call. Um, Ask yourself, who are you looking to meet? Are you looking to meet someone to sell to? Or are you looking to meet someone to partner with? Are you looking to meet someone who can act as a mentor for you? Just write down those goals, have that on your pen and paper, and just recognize that when you meet someone new, they may help better your business, or the other way around, you might be able to help them. So really have those goals in mind when you are attending those networking events. Ask yourself, what are your professional goals? And then on the flip side, what are your personal goals? Networking, we think as strictly like on the job. We're always, trying to advance our professional careers, but there's a lot of personal connections we can make at networking events as well. So I mean, you might make a new friend, you might find someone that you want to volunteer with, you might find someone who's gonna, officiate your wedding. You never know. There's so many people out there, but you know that you've got something in common when you're at that same networking event. So there's always something that you can kind of reach for, whether that's personal or professional. And if you're nervous, start with like a really small, really attainable goal. And that might look like, I'm going to meet one new person. I'm going to reach out to one person that I don't know. And you can do that in the chat, or you can do that, through email later on. But sometimes if you feel like that anxiety and that nervousness of attending a virtual networking event, and I promise you, GEW is packed with networking events. So if you are planning on attending a networking event today or any day the rest of the week, take some of these things with you. If you are just a nervous person or a natural born introvert, start small and then work your way up. You do not have to do it all. You don't have to be the most outgoing person on the Zoom call, but you do have to have a goal, or else why are you there, right? So we've got my good buddy Dwight Schrute saying, fact, goal setting is the hardest part. False. Achieving all your goals and figuring out what to do next is the hardest part. So, uh, that being said, right, we know that setting the goals is step number one. And then figuring out what to do once you've got that information is actually the hardest part. So we need to start at step one and we need to move forward from there. Okay, really big one, guys. You have to check your tech. I don't need to explain some of the issues that can arise when we talk about technology or when we're talking about Zoom calls or Skype calls or FaceTimes or Facebook Messengers or Microsoft Teams or any of those virtual video conferencing sites out there. There's going to be things that go wrong. But we need to do all we can to avoid that user error. So we know those coworkers who still can't unmute themselves 2 weeks after working from home. I was actually surprised at this picture. I feel like it should be 2 months or 8 months. I know that we still have trouble at the library, making sure that we're on unmute when we need to be speaking. But definitely check your tech. Um, let's see here. Some of our, well, that box doesn't make any sense. But when we're talking about checking your tech, this is, our meme here says, you can't unmute themselves. You also want to make sure that you can go on mute. You want to make sure that mute is your default. Uh, Another thing that's really beneficial is, downloading Zoom on your phone or on your laptop and testing it beforehand, especially if you're going to be sharing your screen, if you are going to be um, you know, trying something new. If you're trying a new piece of technology, check it first before you jump in there. You don't want to be that one person that's holding up the call because you can't figure out why you can't hear everyone else, or you can't see everyone else, or you can't get your webcam to work. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, but checking it beforehand, just give yourselves 10 or 15 minutes, and that is going to make a huge difference. um, Small things like making sure that your laptop is plugged in, making sure your battery's not going to die, um, making sure that if you're in the private chat, if you're going to message the whole group, make sure that it's something that the whole group needs to see. If you're just trying to message one person, make sure that you're doing that privately. There's a lot of tech stuff that can go wrong, like I said, but we want to make sure that um, this is one of the huge things that can go wrong at any given point in time. So just make sure that you're good to go. If you plan on using headphones, make sure that, they're wireless, that the Bluetooth is hooked up correctly. Um, this is so important because this is such a time waster if something doesn't go right. And this is also something that if you don't get this right, your first networking event or your 10th networking event, it's really, really hard on you. And if you're a highly sensitive person, or if you are really self critical, this is something that's going to deter you from networking later on. If you can't get the tech to work right for you, that is going to hurt your pride a little bit, and it's going to, hit your confidence a little bit as well. So make sure to practice. Please, if you want help practicing conference calling or Zoom or Skype or whatever, utilize your local library. Your local librarians would love to help you practice with Zoom, or if you're planning on doing a workshop or whatever, we want to help you with that. And there's, you've probably got a lot of friends and family that would be willing to help you with that as well. Next thing we want to do, you got to check your space, right? So you need to be aware of what's happening in your background. So you want to make sure that everything that people could possibly see behind you is stuff that you'd be comfortable with them seeing. Now, there could be all sorts of stuff that you might not be, super stoked for people to see. So if my door was open behind me and maybe the bathroom was visible and my wife came through and, needed to use the restroom, that would obviously not be something that anybody would need to see. So we want to make sure that our background is clear and tidy. Sometimes we can put some of our personality back there, and that's kind of where our weirdos come in. You know, if you've got a really awesome built-in bookshelves, or if you've got a wall that's got some really awesome art on it, set yourself up right in front of that wall space and really let your personality shine through with what's going on in the background. You do want to make sure that you've got a quiet room. A door is great. Even if you've got a door like mine, which I can hear what's happening in the living room, and I'm sure that they can hear me, it's helping me control my environment. That way, we don't get one of those interviews where the kid comes busting in the door and dancing, and it all goes from there. So we want to make sure that we can control the environment around us, and that refers to not only the space behind us, but also the audio, right? Um, I have done a lot of presentations in my basement, and the basement was great because it was super quiet, except when the heater would kick on or the air conditioner would kick on. So that was something that I needed to be able to control, which is why we converted our guest bedroom into my makeshift office. So, another thing you want to consider is your lighting. Lighting's really important. Right now, I've got a window right behind my computer, so you can see that my face is really well lit. Um, this is not as difficult as some people think it is. The easiest thing to do is keep your main source of light behind your camera. And so, whether that's your laptop or your phone, just make sure that there's light behind it, because then the light's coming this way. If the light was behind me, I would look like a shadow, and you lose some personality there. And then, we've got our little meme here looking into people's houses during Zoom calls, like, um, love RuPaul. If you love RuPaul, drop a comment. Um, but we all do this, right? We have done it for the last 8 months. We really scrutinize other people's spaces. So if you know that you do it, you have to know that other people are doing it to you too. Um, Take notes, see what you like in other people's spaces. I don't know if you guys saw Shantae's space, but I think she probably wins for the coolest like backdrop of her virtual conferencing. She's got her guitars up on the wall. It's just very clean and very neat, and really personable there as well. So really consider that. Make sure that your personality can come through. If it's dirty, if it's gross, let's find a blank wall and keep it nice and tidy. We gotta look in the mirror, right? So I don't really love the term like dress for success. I do like dress for your audience, right? Like I know that when I get on a chat with my team members, I don't need to be wearing a button up and a blazer, right? Like they know who I am. If I wear a t-shirt, it's not the end of the world. But if you are at a networking event where you're sure to not know anybody, or you're trying to make a certain impression, dress for that particular audience. If it's a virtual networking group for people in the food industry, that's going to look a lot different than a virtual networking group for the people in the mortgage and real estate industry, right? We can see the difference there. This is something that I always need to check myself on: is do something with your hair. Guys, run a comb through it. Girls, run a comb through it. I hair ties are my best friend. I just throw my hair up and pretend like I put any effort into it. But if we look like our lady off to the side here that you just woke up 2 minutes ago, that's gonna come across like, okay, what is wrong with this person? They don't even want to be here. They clearly put no effort into showing up. So we need to make sure that we are, our appearance is at least a little up to date. And then we need to check our angles. So I if you guys can see me, I don't know if you guys can or not, but if I bring my desk way up here and you can't see my face, I'm not filling the screen anymore, that's not helpful. If it's way down here, but I'm way up here, again, not helpful. I might be too close to the camera. I might be too far away from the camera. Um, if you're concerned about the neck, I'm also concerned about my neck. You just want to make sure that your camera is really level with your face, right? You can lift it up a little bit. If I lifted my computer up a little bit, all of a sudden my chin, decreases by 1 or 2 chins. But if I keep it way down here, right, and I tilt it way up, like a lot of people do, I'm like, hi guys, like, check it out. We need to work on our angles, and that is modeling 101. So make sure that, if you're at your home or, you don't have a desk that rises up and down, a lot of people don't. Grab a box or a pot or a pan or something and stick it under your laptop. So for example, right now I have a box under my laptop, just to make sure that you guys are only seeing one of my chins. So another thing that people tend to not know about, but now you know, is Zoom has a setting that if you go in, it's basically a beauty filter. They don't call it that. They call it automatic touch-ups, and it just smooths the face a little bit. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, if you don't want to wear makeup every single day when you're working from home, let Zoom do the hard work for you. But they do have those automatic touch-ups if that is something that you feel comfortable doing. I do, because makeup is expensive and I don't want to. Okay, another thing we need to do is prepare our introduction. Networking events specifically, there's probably going to be a time where someone says, okay, we're going to go around, the Zoom chat and we're going to introduce ourselves. So, tell us your name and where you're from and a fun fact about you, right? If you're like me, being put on the spot like that, I'm like, yeah, my name, my name, my name. My name is, I definitely have a name, and we just get a little nervous. So something that we can do is, what you're probably going to be asked, right? You're going to be asked your name, your organization, what you do, maybe why you do it. But it's also really important for you to verbalize like what your goal of the event is. And you don't have to say it like, I'm Hannah and I'm with Mid-Continent Public Library and I'm a business specialist for Mid-Continent Public Library. And we do it because helping businesses is really, really important. And my goal for this event is to meet lots of people and have lots of fun, right? Like, that makes you look like a weirdo, but say it in such a way that you become really transparent, really authentic, and really personable, right? Like, I'm Hannah, I'm with the library. We help small business owners get connected with information, and we do it because the library is a great spot for helping people, and that's what we're after. My goals for this event are connecting with other resource partners that can get us connected to small business owners that need our help. And all of a sudden, those resource partners on that call are like, oh yeah, absolutely, Billy with the restaurant down the street, you should meet him because he was just looking at, opening up a new location and he needs some market research, right? Perfect. Boom. That was our goal for the event, and now we've met that goal. I include fun fact down here because I'm guessing 95% of the time, if somebody says, what's a fun fact about yourself, you're like, I don't know, I'm not a fun person. Or you default to, I've got 2 dogs, or I've got a cat. Pets are fun, love your pets, but like, let's prepare a fun fact ahead of time. Keep a couple just written down on a post-it note next to your computer. That way you can always refer to that. Networking events that ask you that, they do that because it's a talking point. So give us something that would be a talking point. And your pets can be a talking point, but a lot of people have pets, right? Like, that doesn't make you stand out in any way. Unless your pet can like skateboard or something, message me, please. I would like to see that. So if you're an introvert, if you're a social pariah, if you're a weirdo and you need to write down some notes, just here's your list, right? Like, name, organization, what you do, why you do it, what your goal is, and a fun fact about you. Big one. I'm not a teacher, but I think that it's important to pay attention during virtual networking. The first thing we can do is put our phones away. You see that I did not put my phone away. And what happened was my Ring doorbell just let me know that there was motion outside. And what happened, right? My eyes went directly to my phone. And then my brain got distracted from what I was doing, which is not great when you're giving a presentation. So we need to make sure that when we are during these networking events, put your phone on silent, put it away, turn it upside down if you need to have it close. I know I need to have it close. It is a part of me. It's part of my soul. It needs to be close to me. But I can put it face down because I know that in 30 minutes, in an hour, I can check it and nothing's gonna change from those 30 minutes. Keep the pets out. Again, love the pets, love my dogs, but my dogs like to bust down this door and come running through. They jump all over the place. They get really excited. They're a distraction. And they're not only a distraction for me, but they're a distraction from, the networking event that's happening. They can be cute. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, look at your dog. And then you're like, oh, look at my cute little dog. And everything's great. But what was the point? We go back to, you were supposed to have a goal. Was the goal of your networking to show people your dog? I'm guessing not. If it's like some sort of virtual happy hour and everything's super laid back, read the room. Like, absolutely. Like, get your dog, get your cat, get your hedgehog, bring your neighbor over, like, do whatever. But you just want to make sure that on these like more professional networking events that you're really focused on what you're doing, because you're there to connect with other people, not the dog that you get to connect with every single day. Another thing that you can do is maximize the screen. So if you're like me, sometimes I like to multitask when I'm on conference calls, and 90% of the time that's a bad idea because I'm not paying attention to the call that I'm supposed to be on. So a great thing that you can do is maximize the screen. It takes up your entire line of vision, and that way it's a lot harder for you to like go check your email or just go send off that one thing really quick, or go into Canva and design something really quick. This gives all of your attention to what's happening right in front of you. If you are distracted by noises, I have a 2-month-old who sometimes cries a lot. So I've got my handy dandy headphones that sometimes I just need to put on. No, I'm not neglecting my child. My wife will be taking care of her while she's crying. But if you have dedicated an hour to a networking event, you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. And also you're helping with the distraction of a crying baby in the background or whatever loud noise may be happening for the other people in the room. Again, try not to multitask. That's why we put our phone away. That's why we've maximized the screen. Dedicate 100% of your brain to what's happening in front of you. And then this is a big tip for our weirdos out there. Read the room. If you are on minute 6 of your introduction and you can see the eyes glaze over, or if somebody asked a question and you've been answering that question for a really long time and you can see people, looking off camera, looking down at their phones, it's time for you to stop talking. I know people like this. Sometimes I am people like this. I feel like I'm people like this right now because I am talking to myself. I've been talking to myself for about 30 minutes now, and it's a weird feeling, but we need to make sure that we've got as much self-awareness as possible when it comes to these virtual meetings, because it's more difficult over screens. In person, it's a lot easier to tell somebody's not interested in talking to you anymore, or they're, the topic needs to change, right? Because they're physically right in front of you, and maybe they cross their arms, or they look away, or they're, make an excuse to go to the food table or get a drink or whatever. It's harder to get away from people through a screen, which is a little counterintuitive, but it is, right? We just will grab our phone and be like, it's really interesting what you're saying, but you've got to shut up. So make sure to read the room. It's hard. It's a skill that you will learn as you go through all these networking events and these virtual calls. But if you don't think you do this, attend a networking event and see if you can spot out the people that are having trouble reading the room, because there are people out there that have trouble reading the room. Um, Another big one is to stay positive. Don't complain. Like usually if somebody asks, what do we always say? We say, "Oh, how are you?" And the first thing you say is like, "Well, I'm doing pretty crappy, honestly. Like I miss the garbage people, and so our trash is going to be here another week, and I'm so sick of being at home, and I think I have like acne on my face from wearing a mask all the time, and honestly my life is just terrible." Like, what is anybody supposed to say to that? Like, nobody wants to hear that. Like, you have friends and family that you can complain to, but in a work setting, in a virtual networking setting where you're trying to meet new people and build your network, complaining is not the way to do that. No exasperated sighs. This maybe gets into making sure that you default to mute. So let's say you're on a call with a couple people and you're going around and you're doing introductions, and there's that person that can't read the room, and they've been talking for 6 minutes now, and nobody's really got the heart to tell them that we need to move on. And then they say something that kind of starts a whole new can of worms. If your mic isn't muted and you go, everybody hears how exasperated you are, and that's a recipe for disaster, right? So just try to stay positive during these calls. Don't be an Eeyore, right? Like, "Oh, woe is me, everything is bad, working at home sucks, everything sucks." um, this may be a little too personal, but I honestly think that there's no worse quality in a person than martyrdom, right? Like, everything is just terrible, but I'm gonna power through it. Like, don't be a martyr, don't be an Eeyore. Um, just try to stay positive, right? Like, positivity is contagious. I really hate telling people to smile, but when you smile, it makes other people more comfortable. When you're positive, when you talk about all the positive things that happened in your last week or whatever, it lifts the spirits of other people, and we all need that right now. I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum here and say, don't be too positive, right? Like, toxic positivity is a thing. Um, if somebody is having a hard time, or if there's a business that's struggling and they're talking about, "Oh, I think we can only stand to stay open for another 2 months. And so I'm really looking to, um, expand my network and try to diversify my offerings," whatever they're struggling with. You don't want to be the person that says, "Oh, everything's going to be fine." That's not why they were on that call, right? They didn't get on the call to hear that everything was going to be fine. They got on the call to make contacts, right? And so, unless you can offer a realistic solution for them or get them connected with another person, maybe just keep some of that toxic positivity to yourself. So, don't be too positive. Don't be a Debbie Downer. We have to engage with people. So, this is maybe one of my favorite things, my favorite memes here. It says, "When you stay silent through the whole Zoom meeting, but you say thanks everyone at the end to make it seem like you contributed." Um, this is me during our meetings at work. It's not that I'm not paying attention. It's just that sometimes it has sucked all the energy out of me, and I just say thanks, and then I log off immediately. So something that we can do to engage, right? We already went to the effort of signing up for this networking event, and we made the effort of downloading Zoom, and we made the effort of planning our goals and doing an intro. And all of a sudden, we get into the Zoom call, and maybe there's like 20 different people, or 30 different people, 40 different people on this call. If you're an introvert and if you have a hard time like speaking up for yourself, it seems like you fade like right into the background. So you need to remember what your goal of that meeting was. Was it to meet one person? Because if it was to meet one person, I want you to listen to those introductions and take notes. That's why you've got your pen and paper. You want to make sure that, okay, Hannah just introduced herself from the library. She says she's got free resources and databases that can help me with my business. So I'm going to write Hannah's name down, and I'm going to get her contact information. That's all you have to do, right? Like that was that one thing that you did, especially in those really, really big networking groups. Um, Another thing you can do is obviously utilize the chat function. We want to make sure that you can answer questions to other people. You can ask questions of other people. Um, and a great thing to do is if there is that kind of like a lull or someone's giving you an opportunity to speak, is to not always talk about you. A great thing to do is remember the word why. So, for example, if Hannah just introduced herself and she said that the library helps food trucks, a great question for me to be like, for me to ask would be like, that's really interesting, Hannah. Like, why does the library help food trucks? And then that opens up Hannah to be able to explain, like, why in the world libraries help food trucks. So these are just some ways to help you engage as an introvert. If you're an extrovert, if you're really outspoken, if you don't mind, taking over the conversation, you know, maybe these tips aren't for you, but I know that as an introvert, as a social pariah, as a weirdo, as an outcast, um, sometimes you need these really specific tips and these guidelines to help you get through that networking event. Lastly, this is so cheesy, but it's so important. You have to be yourself, right? Like you've already self-identified as a weirdo. You self-identified as a social pariah. Um, but that's what makes you you. And that's really, really special. And especially in a time when we are so distanced from other people. Um, uniqueness is a breath of fresh air. Um, I love my wife, but I have been cooped up with her for 8 months. And anytime that I have the opportunity to talk with other people and meet with other people, I'm like, oh my God, like I love the sound of your voice. Like keep talking, like say other things. And there's a really beautiful thing with the uniqueness there. Have fun when it's appropriate. Like I said, if it's a virtual happy hour or if it's an after hours or whatever, have a little fun. People have done some really cool things with their backgrounds on their conference calls, and there's lots of filters that you can use now. But lead with authenticity. Be transparent, be you. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. I think that one of the worst things that you can do is try to be like overly professional, or try to be smarter than you are, or try to be more professional than you are, or try to be better than you are. Like I'm not the type of person that's going to put on this like button up and a blazer and like straighten my hair and then jump on this Zoom call. I'm the type of person that's going to throw on a sweater and hope that my earrings are distracting from my face and hope that the content speaks for itself, right? So embrace your uniqueness, be authentically you, and know that everybody is a weirdo. There's not normal. There is no normal. Um, we're never gonna be normal. Um, your interest, your hobbies, what you do as a business person, as a community leader, as a thought leader in your industry, that's what makes you a great person to connect with. And so take that with you into your next networking event, and really, really own that. Maybe I just went all over all these tips to just tell you to throw it out the window. And if you want to be in a dark room with really bad audio, as long as you're you, it's going to come through. And that's what really matters. So, that being said, I'm like 5 minutes until I need to stop here. So, please ask me any questions. I'm going to see if I've got any like stuff going on in the comments. I'm not positive if I do or not, but there is my contact information. Again, my name's Hannah. I'm with Square One Small Business Services. That's with Mid-Continent Public Library. And there is my email address right there for everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope that you guys got something out of it. And, I hope you guys have a really awesome GEW. I hope that this week is just as awesome as it would be if we were in person like last year. Fun fact, this is my 5th GEW, and I think it's going to be the best one yet. So I'll see y'all later. I'll see you at one of the networking events, and we can practice these things together. So I'll stick around for a couple more minutes if you've got questions, but other than that, we're good to go, and everybody can go fill their coffee cup up with wine now.